Hi, today in this video I'm going to show you how to sew your own fabric corner bookmark. They're really easy to make. Use up all those fabric scraps and they're great for yourself or as a gift for any book lover you know. They're really nice to put in the envelope with a voucher if you've got to post your gift this time. So stick with me and you'll see exactly how to make one. I'm Christine of christinescrafts.com and this channel is dedicated to crafting on a budget. Please subscribe if you like what you see so you'll see all my videos as they come up. And please give me a thumbs up below. So what are you going to need? You're going to need some squares of fabric and interfacing. Okay, so we've got 2 of this pattern, 1 of that and 2 of the other. So you're going to choose your main fabric and you're going to cut 2 squares out. Should be 4 inches by 4 inches and you need 2 squares of that one. You're then going to follow that up with whatever fabric you want to make the triangle out of for the front of the bookmark, and you're going to cut 1 square of that, also 4 inches by 4 inches. You're then going to need some iron-on interfacing, and you're going to cut 2 squares of that. And you'll not be surprised to learn 4 inches by 4 inches. And that's everything you need. Just make sure you know which side's the gluey side and which side is not, because when you're using it, that's going to be very important. So now we've got everything, let's start assembling. You should have 2 squares of your main fabric, 1 square of your triangle fabric, and 2 squares of interfacing. Take 1 of your squares of interfacing and fold it in half. Doesn't matter which way at the moment, all you're doing is marking to cut it. So once you've marked it, you're going to cut it into 2 triangles. So you've basically cut it in half to form 2 triangles. And you're going to use 1 of them and you're going to put the other one aside for the next bookmark you make. A piece of interfacing is going to be used on your front fabric. So make sure you've got the wrong side of that front fabric and you're going to place your interfacing on it. 2 things to be sure. Make sure your fabric is right side down and make sure your interfacing is gluey side down onto the fabric. Place it carefully and then press it in place. You're gluing it to the fabric and then it can't move about while you're sewing and cause you any difficulties. So just make sure it's smooth, make sure it's down, make sure it's glued in place. Once you're happy with it, you're going to fold your fabric in half so that it covers the other side of the interfacing. You're basically making your interfacing into a sandwich in the middle. And then press along that line. And you can see you've formed the triangle for the front of your bookmark already. So now we need to think about assembly. Okay, we've got that. What about the other piece of interfacing we had? We're going to take one of our main pieces of fabric, place it right side down, check your interfacing, make sure you put it glue side down, and you're going to stick that down to your piece of main fabric. Again, just use your iron. Doesn't need to be too hot, just hot enough to melt the glue. Press it in place until your interfacing is stuck firmly to your fabric. Just check at the edges, you'll see if it's lifting, and a little bit more heat. And just check it's firmly down, and then you're ready to build. So I'm going to go back to my board. You're going to place that piece of fabric that's got the interfacing on it face up. So we've got the right side facing up. Take the triangle you made, both sides are the right side. Place that down across there like that. And then you've your other piece of fabric and you're going to place that right side down directly over the other 2. And you can check you've done it right. You can just peel them back and you should have right side, triangle, right side. And now we're just going to pin that in place. So you'll notice I'm just using some large pins because I just want to put 1 on each side. If you like using clips, that's perfectly fine. All you've got to do is make sure you secure it and that you're not twisting it as you go. So the first pin I put in incorporated the triangle to make sure it held it in place. And then you can see I've twisted it slightly. So I'm just going to go and put the pin in the opposite corner and then complete by putting the other two corners in. So you pin in the whole thing, even though you're not going to sew absolutely all the way around, you pin all the way around. And then it's time to sew it in place. So we're off to your sewing machine, or you can hand sew it, but you've got to remember to leave a gap so that you can turn it out. So I recommend a couple of inches, maybe an inch and a half. So what you're going to do is start part way along one side, a little bit of reverse to keep it tight so it doesn't unravel. Get to your corner, needle down, lift that foot, turn, and go all the way along the other side. Take the pin out so that I don't sew over it. Get myself to the next corner, needle in, foot up, turn. And this way you get some nice crisp corners, which is what you want on your bookmark. And just keep working all the way around. So you can see I want to go all the way along this side. Get to the corner, needle in, lift the foot, turn. And I'm going all the way along this side, again all the way to the corner, and then on the final side I need to be careful to make sure I leave a gap large enough to turn it out. So I'll get to this corner, and now I have to look where I sewed to and make sure I don't go too far. And when I feel I've gone far enough, I'll just reverse it and make sure nothing comes unravelled. Then lift your foot, take your sewing out, and just clip those threads however you choose. And clip off the two threads from where you started, and you've sewn round your bookmark, but just left a gap on one side. So before we think about turning it out, I'm going to tidy up those corners. If you clip the corners, which means cutting off a triangle of fabric as close to the stitching as you dare, but do not cut your stitching or everything will go wrong. It just gets rid of some of the bulk and it helps you to get nice corners when you turn it out. So just clip round them all carefully like that. Get rid of those. And now it's time to turn it out. So I'm sure you've got your own techniques, but just poke all the fabric in and through that hole. It can feel a little bit bulky because remember you've quite a bit of interfacing in there. Don't worry, just keep going. Keep pressing it through. And you should start to see your bookmark appearing. So I just push it all through. Get into those corners. Start to see the shape. And look, you can see a bookmark. Now, I tend to find the best tool for getting your corners out is a chopstick. It's entirely up to you what you use. Some people use the back of the scissors, but I always think that's a little bit risky because your scissors have a point. But I find a chopstick's quite nice. It's sharp enough while still having a blunt enough end not to poke through any seams or cut any fabric. And just keep working those corners until you're happy with them. That's always what matters in your sewing, that you're happy. So you can see I'm showing you here that some people will use the back of the scissors. It's entirely up to you. Once you're happy with it, it's going to be time to press it again. So make sure we get a nice crisp bookmark. So back to your ironing board or your ironing pad, and we're going to press it. Now remember, one side of this is not completely sewn. Just make sure those edges are folded in line with the seam so that you get a nice straight edge. And then you're simply going to press it all to get a nice finish. It's all pressed. It should look like a finished bookmark. but obviously we haven't sewn up that side section yet. So we're just going to top stitch all the way around, and that's going to tidy it up, make it look very nice, and it's also going to close up the seam that you left the hole in. So just work your way around in exactly the same way as you did before. Make sure you stay the same distance from the edge. Your markings on your sewing machine are great for that. Just decide where you're going. It doesn't matter. It's entirely up to you. You can be as close to the edge as you like, so long as you're consistent. So work your way around, turn at the corners in exactly the same way. Make sure you get the needle down, lift the foot, turn 90 degrees, and off you go again with the foot back down. If you have trouble at the corners because of all the bulk, just take your time. We're not on a race here, it's about getting a nice finish. You may also choose to lengthen your stitch length to do top stitching. It can sometimes look nicer with a longer top stitch. I'd experiment with that on some fabric beforehand. Now you'll notice I'm cutting the threads off from where I started before I get back to them to make sure they don't get caught in and look a mess. So now I'm just going to make sure I sew right up to where I started and slightly over the stitching to hold it in place, and then I'll do a little reverse, and that's it. That'll just hold it to stop it unraveling. No need to go mad, you don't need to back over loads of it. Snip those ends off nice and tidy, and you've got a bookmark. Now you'll notice my bookmark's quite large because I've made it bigger just so you can see what I'm doing. And you can see you've got the little bit there where your pages fit in. What I have done in the past is made many of these, but made them the actual size, and there's some of them to show you. A nice little bookmark. You can see little different designs, different patterns. You can make them to suit anybody or any occasion. As you can see, one of mine is a Christmas bookmark. So then once you've got your bookmark, you can open up your book and you can slide it on. Pick one page, pick a few pages, it's entirely up to you. Slide it on where you're up to, close your book, and it'll just sit there and hold your page. So thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope your Fabric Corner bookmarks work out well. Please subscribe below, give me a thumbs up, and leave me some comments, and I look forward to seeing you again. Bye.